A dichotomy of light and dark, where energy equals mass on a journey designed to fulfill our personal legend and purpose, to use humanity throughout, to amplify and transcend, tame the ego, raise the humanity. That's a signpost up ahead. Your next stop, the High Vibe Zone.
Hey, y'all, hey. I've been having a little bit of technical difficulties, so we're a little bit past our start time, but we are here. Blame it on the retrograde, y'all. Welcome to the High Vibe Zone. I need this time with y'all today. It has been a very interesting, we're in June, but this past month has been very interesting. So I'm excited to talk to you about this topic, which is really fun for me. If this is your first time in the High Vibe Zone, welcome. I'm Cherise Fonts. Drop your name, where you're watching from in the comments. Love to know that there are other humans out there. If this is not your first time, welcome back to the High Vibe Zone. You have not found this place by accident. You are in the right place, the right time. And the fact that I was having technical difficulties trying to even get this thing started means that this message is most likely for you. So welcome, welcome, welcome. And yes, Amy, blame it on the retrograde. I think we got one more day of the retrograde. And y'all, if you've been experiencing any weirdness in your technology, in the way you communicate with people, more arguments, things just not working out right, schedules being crisscrossed, just kind of weirdness, know that not only was this a retrograde, Mercury in retrograde, but we were also coming off of a lunar eclipse. So it's like really, really weird. So if you've been experiencing some weird stuff, you should start to see some things settle. Oh, I feel like a weather person, like a meteorologist. You should start to see some things settle within the next 72 hours. So again, thank you so much for being here, Amy. So glad to see your face pop up. I'm really excited to talk about this topic. Oh, and it's one of the best hours of the day here because my little crystal shines through and there's some rainbows that you'll see popping up. So we'll get some rainbows here in a little bit. But I'm going to be talking to you today about a life-changing Jamaican proverb. Now, what is, if you are from Jamaica, been around anyone that is Jamaican, you might have heard this proverb. I'm going to say it in Jamaican and then I'm going to translate it into what it means. And then we're going to talk a little bit about it. But I guarantee you this, wherever you are in your life, this message is probably most likely specifically for you. And it expands. I'm going to talk a little bit about different ways and how this context. So the phrase is what is for you, can un for you. And that translates into what is for you can't be un for you. And it's such an amazing, amazing phrase. You might hear, the elder island folk say something like that, going through a hard time, like a grandmother, it's like, child, what is for you can un for you. When you're going through something, and such a deep knowingness. It's not something that I would say is adopted in the Western culture, but you definitely go to Jamaica. This is a proverb that is definitely widely known. So we're going to talk a little bit about this. And again, it means what is for you cannot un for you, which is powerful, given that there are times in our lives where we wonder and we question, why am I going through this? What does this mean for me? Why not me? Why didn't I get that job? Why didn't I get that promotion? why does this person have and I do not? Questions. I mean, if you're human listening to this, you've had questions that maybe stem around some of these things. And so what this saying is initially laying out is everything that you have is for you. If you don't have it right now, it might not be for you right now. However, what I love about this phrase, and I did a linked a live months ago talking around privilege or purpose. And if you want to check that out, I'll drop that in the comments for you. But I broke down the conversation that folks were having around privilege and just what that means. And you know what I'm talking about. I don't need to go into detail. I mean, if you have questions, drop them in the comments. But like the conversation about privilege, and in that live, I said, can someone's privilege outweigh someone's purpose? And I used the example of Frederick Douglass, where in that time he would probably perceive to not have no privilege. I mean, he was still technically a slave at that time. So, but his purpose outweighed anything that privilege could make up. And I think that's really important. And in this context of the saying, it just means what is for you is going to be for you. And in our society, we tend to get wrapped up in this linear trajectory. You're born, you go to school, you learn this, you have, a linear family, you graduate, you meet the love of your life, you go off to another maybe educational track, you get married, buy a house, 2.5 kids, dog, picket fence, retirement fund, 401k, invest over here, travel a couple places, and then you end your cycle of life starts to end. And I think it's really important to pay attention to that. Life is not, you've heard me say this, life is not linear, it's lunar, very much like the moon phases. And in order for us to really understand this phrase of what is for you can unfor you, is to realize that your journey, as intertwined as it is with different people in humanity, is specifically for you. And the things along that journey, in context, no one can take that from you. It's when we start to look at what other people have, what we think we should have, paying attention to, oh, well, they have this and I don't have this, and I have that and they don't have that, that we start to lose the concept of every person's journey is different. Now, our basic needs are very, very important, and I'm not really going to get too much into that. But when you think about, like, okay, that job you didn't get, that job was not for you. And we can make up all kinds of stories and situations and wish I could have did that better or changed that, or this is what happened. But the truth is that led you to this next level or next evolution of your life. Whenever I'm talking to someone, and I just met a new mama the other day, and shout out to you if you're listening. I don't even know if we're connected on LinkedIn, but if you happen to watch this, you know what I'm talking about. And she's getting ready to go back to work, and such an inspiration. She was going through a lot of anxiety and challenges. And what's interesting is she was like, I'm going through all of this stuff, and then I got to go back to work and all of this, but I'm feeling this. And I said, you're in a very interesting transition. I'm curious, what have you been asking for? Because she's like, I'm having issues with this specific coworker that I never had. And so sometimes in life, when you're not getting that thing, like, I want that job, take a step back and look at what have you been asking for this entire time. Maybe it conflicts with what it is that you're looking to receive. And sometimes that's why things don't come to us in the way that they are. But I will guarantee you that as this is my 30-ish years of wisdom, but when I look at this phrase and this proverb, I really do have a sense that everything that we have in this moment is what we are meant to have. And if I'm going to take it to another level, an energetic level, the things that we desire are there for us. They're out there. They've already been established. We just have to get ourselves in the right frequency, the right vibration to receive that. An example of this is when someone pays you a compliment, do you just breeze it off or do you receive it? One of the most active ways to start receiving more of what it is that you want and whatever it is that is coming to you is to absolutely receive a compliment. When someone says, "Oh man, your shoes look really awesome," I receive that and thank you. When someone compliments you on a great job at work, I receive that and thank you. The opposite's also the truth, but you don't have to say you don't receive it. You can just not say it. But start practicing receiving the things that you have, you ultimately are looking for. Another thing that I've noticed about this proverb is that, we look at things as intangible, but currency and energy and receiving abundance all come in different forms. So while you might not have it in monetary, you might get in abundance of opportunity that can lead to the end result. And so thinking about how you're receiving certain things and what you're cutting yourself off from. If someone hands you a gift, you receive it, because you deny gifts too many times and you're not going to get any more. And it's a really interesting thing, that use it or lose it type of thing. So practicing that gratitude and being grateful and thankful for where you are now, because where you are now, whether you're exactly where you want to be or not exactly where you want to be, is where you are, but you won't always be there. And what is for you will 100% come to you. Something around scarcity energy. And I want to talk about that for a second, but I want to get to some comments here. Okay. Called red eye or bad mind. Can you explain a little bit more of that in the comments, Christelle, please? Just explain a little bit more, because I can't actually have a dialogue. So if you could just explain that a little bit more in the comments, I'd love to hear more. And Amy, Buddha says attachment is the root of all suffering. And I'd add comparison to that. Absolutely. It's a big challenge for us, especially I would say here in the States, where we haven't really, we tend to not define our own success and look at what society tells us success is. And I think that's a big problem. And attachment is really huge, because I've noticed, at least in the years that I've been coaching and just observing, we tend to attach ourselves to the things that don't necessarily serve us. And then we will unattach to the things that are simple in nature that do serve us, in a way of overcomplicating. But attachment is such a beautiful release and allows you to create from that space. So thank you so much for that comment. So let me go to scarcity mindset. There was a video that I thought was really funny where it was going around. It was like, I'm not going to do something for free. And what I'm saying is, I'm not telling you should do something for free, but what I'm saying is this video went around and it got a lot of traction, and, and I was reflecting on it, and I said, you could make millions of dollars and still have scarcity energy. You can get paid whatever you ask and still have scarcity energy and a scarcity mindset. And scarcity is in always fearful you're not going to have enough, or not having enough, or it's never enough, or something's going to be taken away, or, something of that nature. You could be paid almost nothing and have an abundant frequency and energy. And that just, and while we live in absolutes sometimes, depending on how you're running your energy, one is a more efficient and positive way to live. So when you think of what is for you, yes, lack. There you go. Unsatisfied. Oh, I like these words. Keep coming. These are, yes, exactly. When you think of what is for you, know that there is always enough. There is always enough. We create scarcity in our mind, but there's always enough. Nature in itself is abundant, and it is us that lack the perception of there is enough. I am enough. I mean, this comes down to, you've heard the conversation around imposter syndrome, comes down to that stuff. Enough. We are enough. We have enough. I am enough. And when you think of it that way and you look at your life and just how it's panning out, the things that are for you will be for you. Now, I will say that it is a lot easier to attract the things that you desire when you have worked on any blockages that have been in your space, in your vibration, in your energy, in your place. And something else that comes to mind is knowing when the end is for something. So I don't think I've shared this publicly with y'all yet, but I'm a birth doula. I've shared that component, postpartum doula, but I'm also practicing to be a death doula. So I'm learning about that and the transition. And I've had some really interesting thoughts and conversations around death. And, it's, again, I think it's looked at a lot differently in the Western culture than it is in some other cultures. We tend to see death as the end. It is the beginning of something. It is very close to life, to creation. And death just means, like, again, the end, but also the beginning of something. So like I was thinking when they say from to death do us part in a wedding, in wedding vows, doesn't mean until physical ending of your life transition, means the end of something, which can be at any season, at any time. You hear people that fall out of relationships, or just it was the end of that. And to assume, kind of going back to a little bit of the attachment conversation, is like to assume that it's forever. We never know. Like sometimes it's a seasonal thing, sometimes it could be lifetime. But the end of something does not mean it's completely over. It just, the energy just changes into something else, the beginning. And so I'm like been studying that cycle of death and just our relationship with that, and how we do with the end of anything. Case in point, jobs. Sometimes we get into an environment and we're like, hey, this is the best environment, things are going well. And all of a sudden you might see things taper off, or in a business, you might start to see things taper off, or signs where you're just not energetically there. That usually means that season is over. And what you've been asking for in the background, this is why it's really important to pay attention to what have you been asking for, what have you been saying, is trying to come to you, but you're stuck in an attachment flow, or not a receiving space. And it's really challenging, or it might take a little bit longer. I don't know if some of y'all might be like me, like it took me a little bit longer to get some stuff, which is why one of my favorite books is Leo the Late Bloomer. So if y'all have not read Leo the Late Bloomer, I think I've read it to y'all on here before many, many moons ago, but essentially everything comes in your own timing. It's a kind of another play on this saying, but know that you need to be in the right frequency for that to happen. So while these things are coming to you, and I feel like everyone that I've spoken to or coached over the years, when they know that there's something better for themselves, the only absent of that something better is their energy or frequency towards it, whether they don't believe they deserve it. But it's already there. Like you can't miss a cat you never had. So it's like, it's there. It's just on the other side of the energy that you're running. So being very mindful of like, hey, maybe I don't have this because it's not for me. Like I don't have this, there's like this house down the street, and it looks okay. It's kind of like a Minecraft looking kind of house. And I'm like, why don't I have this house? Because the house is not for me. My energy has been towards a homestead, towards a field that has acres and chickens and goats and streams and pigs. That house would not serve my desires and what I want. But guess what? I will have that farmhouse I will have what I am ultimately seeking because it is for me. Just taking some time to get into that frequency. And so, when we think about privilege, I really want to let you know, I don't care what your ethnicity is. I'm just going to say this all out here. Quote me, don't quote me, like it, don't like it. Your privilege has nothing to do with your journey and your physical form. Has nothing to do with it. Your purpose outweighs privilege beyond the odds. And there's been history of folks that can prove that. So when you think about privilege, just move that to the side. What is for you can for you. It just can't. What is for you is for you. What is for them is for them. Now, I understand that the ego wants to battle this. The ego feels resistance. There's a lot of other talk out there, and I get it. And I'm not here to battle with your ego. I'm here to just lay out an idea, a thought, a sense, something that is very much your inner being, your higher self, your spiritual being knows. It is the thing that the human experience has to know and understand. This cannot be a belief, something that is gifted to you. But once you experience enough discord, enough, I guess what's the energy rub, where you're like, I'm putting out all this energy, I'm exhausted, I'm doing this. Very similar to like an article I wrote where it's, it's harder to fight for something than it is to stand in the truth of something else. Putting all that energy into fighting, you'll lose a lot of your energy. There are other ways, and there's been history of other ways that are more efficient with your energy because that aligns closer to your being, your spiritual being, the thing that is connected to all. So, I just I reflect on this proverb a lot, and I've had to think about it when things don't go the way that I want them to go. And while I am an optimist, I do get disappointed around certain things. Why didn't that happen that way? Or it would have been a lot easier if it was this way. Like I said, this past month in the beginning has been really challenging for me. But I realize what is for me is for me. I am meant to go through what I'm meant to go through. This is the human experience. Outside of it, it's almost maybe I should do a high vibe zone on this because it's a little harder to explain. And maybe I'll do a separate conversation on it. I don't want to convolute this, but let's see. Oh, thank you so much for your comment. Glad that you love it. Yes, you can talk to me about all the things. I like to, there's literally no topic that I do not find interesting to talk about. And I love to go deep. It is what it is. Thank you, Robert. I like to say it is where it is. It's all the same. Thank you so much for joining me in the high vibe zone. Any thoughts or comments on this concept of this amazing, life-changing proverb? Because once you receive and absorb it, that you are where you are because it is where you're meant to be. And because most of us really judge our lives like let's say we're watching a show or a movie and the movie was on pause and you come in and you say, this is the worst movie in the world, but you've never seen the beginning or the ending and you just see a screenshot of something. Most of us judge our journeys based off of that. A lot of what's coming for you next really is what's meant for you. And there are lessons and moments of magic and all of that. We are constantly battling to stay present. So it might be harder for us to hear those whispers, to see that magic, but it's there. It is 100% there if we can just be still. I've shared this quote with y'all before. It is one of my favorite quotes that I like. Let's see. All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone. This is such a powerful quote. Spend time with yourself. When you see stuff that happens in the world, don't just absorb other people's energy about it. Sit with the situation and see where you are, your higher self is in relationship to what you're seeing. Because the most dangerous thing that you can do is take on other people's energy that is not yours. Because then you're operating from a frequency that's inauthentic. And you wonder, why did I do that? Or why did I make that decision? Or that's not how I like to respond to things. It's because you're taking on things that aren't for you. Whereas if you stay within yourself, take some reflective time, kind of look at what have I been asking for? What has my intuition been telling me? It's another big thing. Our intuition is key. You don't need Google to tell you what your intuition knows. You don't need someone else to validate your intuition. Your intuition is designed for you to guide you to where you're going next. So really pay attention to what your intuition is telling you. If something doesn't feel right, take some time. You know, in doula world, if the baby's not coming, we don't rush to the birth. And even if the baby is coming, we stay calm. So just, think about some of these things, and whatever resonates for you is for you. What doesn't is not for you. And that's okay too. Let me see. I think I have another really good quote that I like. Okay. So if this quote is new or this proverb is new to you, something else I'd love to share with you. I don't think I've shared this before in the High Vibe Zone. Then we're going to get wrapped up. If there's no comments or questions or thoughts, we each do the best we can based on the level of awareness, maturity, and personal security we are at. People who hurt others are really hurting within themselves. They are behaving in the wisest way they know how. And if they were capable of conducting themselves with greater leadership, generosity, and humanity, they would have done so. I like this quote because it talks about how, even though we are connected, our individual journeys are so unique to us. It's very challenging to look at someone, again, just like you're watching or you look at a freeze frame. It's very challenging for us to make up all the story and the history of something. And, we tend to do that. We tend to compare ourselves, and then we start to build this level of attachment to things that will probably never satisfy that. I don't even know if it's happiness factor, joy, peace component. And I just sense that, like I said, I don't know where y'all are at in your lives, but I know that this message, if you sit with it, what is for you can't be for you, will really start to bring some peace to your soul in whatever you're battling with, whatever you're dealing with, whatever you feel like is not enough, wherever you feel like is lacking. Some people are like, oh, it's too late for that. You are exactly where you're supposed to be, even if it doesn't feel like it, because you're always shifting and moving and being guided. Always. Even if the water on the top is not moving, there is still a flow that is happening underneath. And so for you, going through whatever you're going through, which I have no idea, but I know as a human, we go through so many different phases of the moon, that what is for you cannot be for you. It is on the way. You just got to shift and fine tune your energy into a different vibration because it's there. You are all deserving of the best things in life. All deserving. You are the 1 in 4 trillion component to all of this, are so deserving of everything and goodness and greatness in this world. It's just a matter of receiving that and navigating through some of the mess And again, quoting my great friend, she's so awesome. Felicia, if you're out there watching, hey girl, hey. They could have stopped at the word free, but we get trapped in the dumb stuff. Do not get trapped in the dumb stuff. What is for you can un for you. Thank you so much for spending time with me in the High Vibe Zone. I am Cherise Fonts. Hit me up on LinkedIn. Love to have virtual tea. Thank you so much for joining me. And I hope that you have a beautiful rest of your week as we exit out of this retrograde. Light and love to you. Take care. I'm trying to...
You're a spiritual being in physical form, a dichotomy of light and dark, where energy equals mass on a journey designed to fulfill our personal legend and purpose, to use humanity throughout, to amplify and transcend, tame the ego, raise the humanity. That's a signpost up ahead. Your next stop, the High Vibe Zone.